Hi everyone! As you can see, this video is a little different from my usual. My husband and I live in the desert, and I have been wanting a pool since we moved here in 2014. When we would drive through town, we'd see these stock tanks at Tractor Supply, and he would joke that would be my pool. We would have a good laugh about it and then go about our business. Little did we know people were actually doing this, so we watched a few videos, read a few blogs, and decided it was a fantastic idea. We went to our local Tractor Supply to buy a stock tank, and the woman at customer service burst into laughter. It turns out we were the 167th customer to order one, and it was only mid-June. So we got on the waiting list, which locked in the price and ended up saving us about $40 by the time our number was called in late August. Tractor Supply offered local delivery for an extra $70, so that saved us from having to rent a truck or trailer and figuring out how to strap it down ourselves. After the tank was delivered, I washed it down with Dawn dish detergent to remove any grease. Then I rinsed it really well and let it dry in the sun. The tanks are pretty lightweight, they're just big. 2 people can easily move the tank around. You just lift it up onto its side and roll it wherever you need it. We rolled it into our back patio and left it upside down overnight to keep dirt and bugs out of it until we were ready for the next step in the morning. We used Pond Shield Epoxy Pond Liner to seal and protect the stock pond from rust. It comes in a range of colors, including black if you want to really heat up the water. Since we live in the desert, I was worried black would make it too hot, so I ordered 2 kits in the sky blue finish. I've already mentioned that we live in the desert, and the stock tank got delivered in late August. So our days were in the hundreds, and nights only cooled off to about 75 degrees at dawn. Epoxy is heat sensitive, so you'll lose working time the warmer it is. The ideal temperature for doing epoxy work is 73 degrees, and by 8 a.m. it was going to be 80 degrees, so we already had a small window of not even ideal working temperature. So we refrigerated the 2 kits of epoxy overnight to extend the working time. Just as it was getting light outside, we started prepping for the epoxy coating. We put plastic down on our work surfaces and gathered the paint rollers, mixing sticks, mixing cups, and rubber gloves. At about 6:30 a.m., I used 99% alcohol to do one final clean of the tank. This stuff is hard to find, but you can get it at a makeup effect supply company like friendsbeautysupply.com. You'll probably need about 16 ounces because we'll be using more of it later. Epoxy is a 2-part material. When you open the components, stir each one with its own mixing stick. We split the first kit into 2 batches. We added a 1/4 cup of 99% alcohol to half of part B and mixed them together thoroughly. Then we added half of part A to that and mixed for 1 minute. Count the seconds for accuracy or use a timer, and scrape the sides and bottom of the mixing container as you go. We used disposable containers and paint sticks because they'll be ruined. We decided to coat the sides first so I could be in the tank while my husband was mixing and pouring the epoxy along the edge. We used 6-inch foam rollers so it wouldn't absorb too much of the epoxy, although they did fall apart quickly, so get more than you think you need. We had a 5-pack and could have used a few more. My husband Rallis poured the epoxy along the edge, and I tried to spread it to get as much coverage as possible as quickly as possible. Small cleanup can be done with 99% alcohol. Even though this is non-toxic, it's still messy, so I'd recommend wearing gloves. The pond liner kit recommended sanding the metal. We didn't do this step. The stock pond is galvanized, so it's already resistant to rust. Sanding would have helped the epoxy adhere, but it would have compromised the zinc coating, so we'll see how it holds up. The first batch of epoxy went on a little after 6:30 a.m. Then Rallis mixed the second half of the first kit the same way as the first batch, and we were done with the sides in about a half hour. Rallis also went along the top edge with a disposable paintbrush that he had superglued the bristles into ahead of time. For the bottom, we did the whole second kit at once. We added a 1/2 cup of alcohol to part B and mixed it thoroughly. Then added all of part A and mixed for 1 minute. We poured a thin stream over the bottom instead of pouring it in one big puddle because it's thick and kinda hard to spread. We put one of the rollers on a pole and spread the epoxy. I was able to use some of that epoxy to touch up the thin areas on the walls. We considered getting a third kit of epoxy so we could have more coverage, but it's pretty expensive, so we did our best to spread the 2 kits around as much as possible. After about 20 minutes, the bottom was covered. By the time we cleaned up, it was almost 8 a.m. and already 80 degrees, just as scheduled. The epoxy has to cure for 24 hours before you can add water, so we let it sit and I got to work prepping the location of the pool. I had already decided where in the yard I wanted it, which was exactly where our laundry gray water let-out is. We had made a nice little moat and planted some wild sunflowers and also piled a bunch of dirt from another project right where I wanted the pool to go. So I had a lot of prep work to do there. I dug a new trench for the gray water and we put new PVC pipe down to direct it along the back fence where we'll plant some trees. Then I cut down the sunflowers. Don't worry, they had all gone to seed by this point, and I left the heads out for the birds to finish picking clean. Then I filled in the moat and started leveling the dirt. Our lot is sloped, but I didn't realize how much until I got a 6-foot level. I ended up raising the low side about an inch at a time, then hose it down and tamp it, check for level. Nope, still needs another inch. So I did this at least 4 times over the course of a day and a half. When it was finally level, we rolled the pool into place. Well, my husband rolled it, I just watched. We positioned it with enough room behind it for trees and a deck that will eventually build around it. When we were both happy with the spot, I marked around the circumference about 2 to 3 inches away from the sides, and we moved the pool away so we could put down some gravel for drainage. We got pea gravel from our local Home Depot. A bag of gravel is cheap, but it doesn't cover much space, and each one weighs 50 pounds. To figure out how many bags we needed, I needed to find the square footage of our circle. The formula is pi times the diameter divided by 2 squared. Our stock tank is 8 feet wide, so divided by 2 is 4. Squared would be 4 times 4, which is 16. 16 times pi, which is about 3.14, comes out to about 50 square feet. Based on us needing 50 square feet of coverage, we would have needed 17 bags to get 2 inches thick gravel. It seemed like a bit too much, so we went with only 12 bags, and it was perfect. I checked the load limit of my car and decided it could only handle 6 bags at a time, which would be 300 pounds. So we had to get it in 2 trips. I raked the gravel to get even coverage, checked it for level, and then we rolled the pool back into position, making sure the drain was where we would want it later. I vacuumed out the debris that had blown into the pool and wiped it out, then plopped in a hose. We saw a lot of other people using pool noodles for the top edge, which is such a great idea. We got them at a dollar store back in June when we ordered the stock tank, so we had them ready to go. For an 8-foot tank, we needed 6 noodles. Peel off the sticker, use a similar colored Sharpie to mark a line, and then use a retractable blade, making sure it will cut through the center, and cut along your mark. Then finagle it over the lip of the pool and you're all set. At least for now. We're going to add a pump and some decorations, so I'll make another video to go over that, but here's what we've spent so far. The pond from Tractor Supply was $400, and the price does fluctuate depending on the season. The delivery was $70, and it was totally worth it. 2 kits of the pond shield was about $140, 12 bags of pea gravel was about $60, and 6 pool noodles was about $12. Oh yeah, and $10 for the rollers, $5 for my flamingo floaty, $10 for a tarp to use as a temporary cover, plus the stuff we already had like gloves, disposable containers, a 6-foot level, rakes, tamper, bungee cords to hold the tarp on, so we're already over $700. But it's way cheaper than a full-size pool. It's way less water too, and it's really the perfect size for us. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for a follow-up video after we receive the pump.